When the news reports that the U.S. government owes $36 trillion and counting, the sheer scale of the number triggers an immediate sense of panic. Most people judge a country's financial health using the logic of a household checkbook, where carrying massive, compounding debt is a precursor to bankruptcy and ruin. Yet, look at the world's most stable economies. Japan, Germany, Switzerland, and the United States carry the world's largest debt loads. Japan's debt alone is currently double the value of its entire economy. Household financial rules do not apply to sovereign nations. Relying on them obscures the actual mechanics that keep the global economy turning. If debt is a sign of instability, we should expect to see the most successful countries operating with zero debt. Macau is the only major entity that comes close to a zero-debt model. But Macau is a tiny territory with a population smaller than many city suburbs, and it funds its entire existence through billions in surplus revenue from a massive casino industry. Standard modern economies cannot function on a cash-only basis. They are built on a different set of financial requirements entirely. Governments that control their own currency could theoretically pay for every bridge and school by simply printing the cash, avoiding interest-bearing loans altogether. Printing unlimited money causes the currency to flood the economy. When the supply of cash outpaces production, prices skyrocket and hyperinflation takes hold. Zimbabwe experienced this collapse firsthand, eventually issuing a $100 trillion banknote that was effectively worthless as soon as it hit the streets. In Venezuela, attempting to print out of a deficit crashed the currency so severely that protesters began defacing banknotes to highlight the resulting food shortages. Borrowing imposes a necessary discipline. The requirement to pay interest forces governments to manage their money responsibly, which protects the value of the currency itself. Countries use debt to buy the future. By running a deficit today, a government can build the infrastructure and schools that will drive the economic growth and tax revenue of the next 30 years. Debt also acts as a vital shock absorber. In 2020, the U.S. borrowed trillions of dollars to issue stimulus checks and business aid, a move that stabilized the economy during a global shutdown. The deficit functions as a strategic investment tool, allowing a nation to manage a crisis or fund growth that pays for itself over time. When a government borrows, it issues bonds, official certificates that promise to repay the holder with interest. These bonds are purchased by three main groups: local citizens and banks, foreign nations like Japan and China, and central banks. Unlike a normal person who must clear their debts within a lifetime, a sovereign nation is functionally immortal. When a loan is due, the government takes out a new one to pay off the old lender, a process called a rollover. Economists track the safety of this cycle using the debt-to-GDP ratio, weighing a nation's total debt against its entire economic output. As long as the economy expands faster than the debt grows, the balancing scale remains stable. Sovereign debt remains sustainable indefinitely, provided the economic output continues to outpace the interest. The system relies entirely on trust. If a country's growth stalls and investors lose confidence, interest rates spike. The nation then enters a debt trap, where all its revenue goes toward interest payments rather than services. This loss of trust has real-world consequences. In 2022, Sri Lanka defaulted on $51 billion in debt, triggering a total collapse of the local economy and widespread social unrest. When a nation can no longer borrow, it turns to the IMF for emergency loans. These bailouts require strict austerity measures, such as deep spending cuts and tax hikes that often worsen the economic pain for citizens. In Greece, these forced spending cuts led to years of protests as the public pushed back against the loss of essential services. A debt crisis is ultimately the direct result of mismanaging growth and losing the confidence of the global market. Imagine a massive economy like the U.S. successfully paid off every cent it owed. Wiping out the national debt would eliminate government bonds, the safest assets in existence. These bonds act as the foundational pillar for the entire global financial market. Most citizen retirements depend on this debt. Pension funds and retirement accounts rely on the low-risk stability of government bonds to grow money safely over decades. Removing that pillar would force these funds into volatile, high-risk assets, putting the savings of millions at risk. Sovereign debt forms the foundational infrastructure of modern global finance. The national debt represents the complex machinery required to keep a modern civilization turning.